Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us in another episode of Highwaymen Social. Today I have with me two close friends, Scott and Candy Kaplan. They are both collectors and experts in the world of highwaymen to various degrees, and I'm excited to have them here to talk about the social aspects of couples in the collecting world. Over the recent years, we began to see more and more husbands and wives and couples joining each other in the gallery and in the room, as opposed to just the guys collecting, and that's an exciting part. So I want to start by talking a little bit about that. Candy, tell me a little bit about how you began collecting with Scott and how it all happened.
Well, we have actually been collecting for over decades now. The two of us together started it at just up the road at the Grand Antique Mall. We just walked in one day and we both kind of looked around and were like, hey, these are pretty cool. I kind of like this. And we just started collecting at that point. The interesting thing to me is what you just said, is now you're seeing a lot more women. Back 10, 20 years ago, I could be the only female in a room full of a bunch of men that were all talking about their art, and there's no women around. And now I could go into a room and I could see dozens of women. And so it's really pretty cool to see the evolution of watching some women be involved in that.
So you get the benefit of the camaraderie with the other ladies.
I do.
As well as the idea of having a hobby in common with Scott.
Yes, well, hobby in common is kind of an important aspect, if you ask me, because as couples go, as marriages go, you know, a lot of times you got the woman in the side reading her book, or the man outside doing his yard work, and you're not doing things together. And when a marriage develops, you kind of want to find some hobbies that you do have in common. And I have found the art to be something that's really fascinating to do together. It brings you together to have a commonality, something to experience, but also like when you go to an auction or you go to an event, you have that memory together. So then you go home the next week,
right,
and you're sitting having coffee and you're like, hey babe, remember when we did that thing? That was so great. And it bonds you together as a couple, not just as an individual. So I think it's really kind of a unique experience to be able to enjoy all of that.
Got it. Give me your thoughts on that, Scott.
That's true.
Because sometimes there's a guy's perspective to that.
That is very true.
Yeah.
A lot of times I've caught myself reflecting with Candy on some of our best and most fun times.
Nice.
Were when we traveled, you know, to go to different Highwayman events and different auctions, and it's always even better when you come home with a painting. But
Yeah.
but we had a lot of great experiences over the years, meeting people. One of the other aspects, as far as couples and socialization, is that we're finding, you know, in the field of psychology, that as we get older, it's more and more important to socialize and to maintain social contact. There's a lot of studies that have come out recently that when people retire, a big part of why they find difficulty in that transition is the lack of socialization, the fact that they're no longer around people. So if you have the opportunity with your partner, with friends, to get out there, enjoy the art, enjoy the passion of being a collector, but also having that opportunity to be around other people, it's probably a very positive thing on a number of levels.
And you are a psychologist by trade. You have 40-year practice here in Indian River County area. And so you've seen a lot of this. And I guess in the beginning, did you do this with Candy, or was this something that you two eventually came to do together?
I think we actually started this together. As Candy said, we don't live very far from what is called the Grand Antique Mall, which back in the day was really the hub in this area of highwayman art. And we walked in there one day, as Candy said, we saw some paintings. They were fascinating from an artistic standpoint, from a historical standpoint. We purchased our first painting, which may be the biggest problem of all, because as a psychologist, I will tell you, there is an addictive component.
How long ago was that?
Oh, it goes back almost over 20 years or so ago.
So you two were 12 when that happened. Got it. Okay,
Exactly.
got it. So 20 years you've been doing this, and you enjoy the time together and the experiences together collecting art. Do you have this period of well, I'd really like this on the wall, and you'd really like that on the wall. And is there a compromise there in terms of what you decorate the home with?
I'll let Candy start with her thoughts on that.
Honestly, a lot of the times we agree on the art. We actually both tend to enjoy similar pieces. And
Okay.
Scott has a really artistic eye, and he helps me understand, at least in the beginning, what was valuable in terms of collecting art. And so now I can see the value in this versus that. And to me, what I like on the wall is what I know is going to eventually be good for my portfolio. So
Okay.
there's a
All right.
thought to that
All right.
part of it as well. And so we kind of do agree on a lot of the art, I think.
We do. Maybe the biggest difference is Candy tends to like somewhat of maybe darker pieces.
Really?
stormier
I like a
pieces,
stormy piece. Yeah.
where
Really?
I'm more of a bright, lighter type preference. But with collecting art, Paul, it's interesting because you could collect art just for the love of the art and disregard the value of the art. I like it. It doesn't matter what it cost, who did it. I want to look at it. That's great. And then there's the other element of it is there's a fiscal component to it. If I want to spend money and I want to enjoy looking at it on the wall, is there a possibility there could be some financial profit from it? So I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out, which is not the easiest thing to do, what makes one piece of art maybe more valued than another piece of art.
That's a great point. The love of the art is one thing. You put it on your wall and you love it. And the financial gain is yet a completely different thing. But highly liquid assets like stocks and bonds, things like that, you tend to lose interest in if it's not doing well. Whereas a hard asset like a collectible on your wall, you tend to look at it and you go, it doesn't matter how much it's worth. I love it. And then over time, over a longer period of time, because you didn't pull the trigger and let it go, kind of like a relationship. You didn't pull the trigger and let it go. Over time, you come to appreciate it more. And in the end, you look at it and you go, wow, I've had something really special this whole time through the ebb and flow of it all.
Exactly. Do you want to comment on that?
Yes.
I think Paul's right.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right. I look back at some of my most valued and favored personal pieces, and they're the pieces that we've had from the beginning. Some of the pieces that we bought decades ago are some of the pieces that I absolutely enjoy the most looking at on the wall, and just knowing that we've had them and we've enjoyed them all the 20 years we've been doing that.
Absolutely. And in times like now, where the economy has been rocked a little bit and there's a downturn, it's nice to know there's these assets, hard assets as you call them, that are sitting on your wall that you have the emotional joy of looking at every time I come home from work. There's certain paintings I still look at every night when I come home. But to know that because there's only so many of them made, there's only so many of them out there, that no matter what is happening in the world economy, these paintings are going to hold up in value based on supply and demand. There's only so much out there supply-wise, and as you know, the demand has increased.
Okay, so there's one of you who is the art lover, and the other one who looks at it and says, honey, it's got X amount of value, it's got to go or stay. Which one's which?
I don't sell.
Yeah,
I tend not to
you
want
tend
to
not to sell.
I tend not
You tend to
want
be the
sell.
keeper.
I am the keeper.
But in all my other conversations with you, you tend to be the one that looks at the financial side of it more than Scott.
I do. And I just enjoy it so much, it's hard for me to pull the trigger
Okay,
and do anything
got
about
it.
it.
Okay, you love to watch them appreciate. I got it. I understand. I understand. That's really good. Okay, going to a private individual versus an auction house. You bought from both. Tell me about the feel of how it all works. Us as an auction house, we love to have the historical prices realized and the trends because that helps raise the market as a whole. People look at it and say there's strength in an underbid, okay? And then there's the art of the deal in a private deal. Candy, you are usually the one that goes and makes the private deal, am I correct?
I do. I
Yep.
do tend to make
Yep.
private. I have.
Guys have a harder time saying no to you than they do to Scott. But okay, so how does all that work?
There's a lot of psychology, in my opinion, behind buying from an auction house versus buying from a private dealer. Recently on Facebook, there's been a lot of questions that have come up. Question being is, why do I have a painting that I try to sell individually, privately, and have some challenges and some difficulty, but yet if it were to go to auction, it's always going to sell.
And sell well.
And sell well.
Right.
And I have formulated some of my own opinions, right, wrong, or indifferent, as to why that is. I think going to a reputable auction house, there's a degree of safety, there's a history there. There's credibility there. Also, the psychology of when you're bidding and other people are bidding with you, it kind of confirms, there's a universal feeling, it confirms the value
Yes.
of what you're bidding on. Oh, there's other people that also deem this piece to be of value. I can't be that wrong.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
There's the other side of dealing privately too. You know, you may want to purchase a piece. What I've come to find, Paul, as time goes on, there's this question of how much exposure and visibility does a collector, especially a higher end collector,
Yes, good point. How much do you want?
how much do you want
Right.
other
Yeah.
people
To know. Right. Yeah.
And when you go to an auction house, they're going to know. You know,
They
they're
are gonna know.
And some people
Yeah.
want to keep that discreet. And this is a whole other conversation
Yes, you see that a lot.
in terms of visibility. And do you show your paintings? Do you put your paintings up in exhibit at museums? There's a lot of reason to do that. There's a lot of value for the movement to do that. But from a fiscal standpoint, there's sometimes it could be questionable as to how much exposure you want a painting to have, because it loses its novelty if it then goes to market.
So you're not just talking about how much exposure do you want as an individual of your art in the market, but the value of the art, the potential increase or decrease in the value of the art because it's been exposed to the market. It's not fresh to market anymore.
That's the term I was going to
Yeah,
say. A
it's
lot
not
of
fresh
people
to
like
market.
to hear that, oh, this piece is fresh to market. This piece has never been seen before. And that
Right.
excitement for that purchase goes up if it is a fresh to market piece.
Right.
So if you continue to show it on all the exhibits, maybe it loses a little bit of that excitement for people.
Yeah, and there's another, that's a good point. There's another concept in psychology called desensitization. When you have seen something time and time again over an extended period of time, it loses its novelty. Some of the glitter wears off. There's a little bit of tarnish with time. So there's that element as well. You and I have talked about how much exposure do you want to put your paintings up when Manor has an auction?
I like that point, yes.
Do you want it to be on the internet for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, or maybe 2 or 3 weeks, where there's less time and less chance for this desensitization to occur?
Okay, so your point is that the shorter amount of time, or there's a window of maybe 2 weeks where it's still an exciting thing, and the marketplace has chatter about it, and it's not, yes, that's a product that's been out there for a while versus a new product that's fresh to market.
Exactly, and a good point of that is years back, eBay was a very good platform to buy and sell Highwaymen. But if you've noticed more recently, eBay has almost become the graveyard of a lot of Highwayman paintings because of this concept of exposure.
Right, because you can leave something out on eBay for months and months and months at a time, and then the next person puts one out, and then the next person puts one out, and now there's 5 of them on the market, and it doesn't look so scarce anymore versus kind of like the auction environment, where there's this sense of urgency, there's a sense of support, a sense of camaraderie, like being on a cruise ship and buying jewelry that you know is overpriced,
Exactly.
right? But you do it because it's the memory of the moment. There's a sense of camaraderie. There's support knowing that there's 100 other people in this room willing to do this with you, okay?
100%.
And now is that moment, and all you have to do is raise your hand, and for one shining moment, you get to be the owner.
That's right. That's right. And if you don't win the bid, like you say, you still had fun.
Right. You went away a winner no matter
That's
what.
right.
You had a good time,
right.
and you had fun. I remember one day you came by and you said, you know, Paul, you put out a great spread of food, but Candy and I go out to dinner before we come here. We don't really come for the food. You put out an awful lot of food. And I said, you know, Scott, you remember that Mary Ann Carroll that you and Candy bought about 6 months ago? And I forget what you paid for it, but it was a sizable amount. And you go, yeah, that was a great painting. And I said, you paid for our party for 6 months. Thank you. The food's been great. Yeah.
That painting is above our television in our living room, by the way.
Is it really? Is it really?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's talk about art in down markets and the value of paintings. You and I have talked about the economics of riding out the wave, and you know, companies like Shearson and all the major houses, all the major hedge funds and things of that sort, hold about 15 to 20% of the stock portfolio in a hard asset. Usually that hard asset is gold or silver or things like that. And as stocks fall, hard assets rise, and there's this sale of hard assets to balance the portfolio and offset losses. We're seeing a lot of that in the marketplace right now. How do you see, you know, hard assets like art faring in the economy? You've been doing this a long time.
A long time, and that's a good question. I've kind of used, maybe a little more conservative. I've kind of used 10 to 12%. You would mention 15% with some of the bigger name companies. In my investment strategy, I've been around 10 to 12%. Candy maybe has been a little higher with her hard assets, and we'll sometimes have conversations, and I may look at her and say, you're a little art heavy right now, thin it out a little bit and balance it out. But I look at art in a lot of ways. I manage my art almost as how people manage a mutual fund. I'm kind of in and out of it a lot. I tweak it as time goes by. I know everyone starts off with entry-level pieces, and the developmental stages are you want to upgrade, maybe you want one of every one, all 26, then you want all 26 on Upson, then you want all Poincianas, you know, and it evolves. But I'm constantly in and out of tweaking my art portfolio based on the trends I see and what's taking place in the market.
Okay, so you covered a few important areas of art collecting, and I know you and Candy both do this together. There's a form of crazy that comes with having one of each widget in the factory.
We did that. We had our moment with that.
Okay.
We had one of everybody in the beginning.
In the beginning,
Yes,
okay.
in the beginning.
And then you look at it and you go, well, I just want the core, you know, the founding 8, okay, and then, or maybe 26 point siennas, you know what I mean? Is there really value to that, or do you just see, let's just get the best that we can get because we love what we have, and we're going to need to look at it every day, and maybe Rodney Demps is not the man for you know, for our home. What do you think?
Well, I'll share a thought on that. Again, with social media and Facebook, there's been a lot of talk about analytics and, you know, breaking down, you know, which artists may be of more value or trending, the concept of trending. There's value to the analytics. I kind of put that on the back burner, and I feel like purchasing art is piece by piece specific. It's an individual piece of art that really dictates its value. And there's things, yes, there are certain artists we know that carry more weight. We know this. But even within that artist, his body of work, what was it painted on? What was the era the painting took place in? What was the technique used? What's the image of? What's in the painting? All these kinds of things. So to answer your question, I think Candy and I have gotten to the point where we're now looking to purchase what would be the better paintings financially and emotionally, to look at the artistic value.
Got it.
A combination.
So what I'm hearing is you're a deeper dive into these paintings than maybe Candy is. You like them dark.
I like some dark, yes.
You like them dark. Scott likes them light. Do you look at the history of the painting, the board that it's on, all of the background, or do you just look at it and go, it's a really pretty painting versus Scott?
I absolutely look at a painting and say it's a gorgeous painting. I love that painting. But will I buy it to put it on my wall? I will look at what it's on, and I will look at what what the image is.
So what it's made of is as important as what it looks like.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And you feel the same way, Scott, right?
I do.
Did he talk you into this, or you talk him in? How did this go?
You'll never know.
Okay, got it. That's a fair one. That's a fair one. We've got a lot of changes in global markets right now, and things are up and down. And the Highwaymen story has been a great story. It is well vested in the American story and the heart of the American dream, and it's got a long way to go. Tell me what you think. You know that the movie's ready, but tell me what you think about the long-term future is here.
I think it's very promising. I think we've not hit the ceiling on it yet, by no means. The movie's going to play a role. New collectors coming in. We're meeting new collectors. We're seeing new people at auction. I think all of that's going to drive the market up in these uncertain times like we have now. I mean, has anyone ever really walked into someone's house and seen their mutual fund prospective hanging on the wall, or their bank statement hanging,
right,
or their stash of silver hanging on the wall? No, and I think the trend will continue to go up, but I think it's very important. I don't want that to be interpreted by the public as just buy anything. With any investment, with any movement, you do have to do your research. And I believe in being a student of the game and understanding what you're buying. I do look at the better paintings, Paul, kind of the analogy in real estate, maybe to like waterfront property.
Mm-hmm.
Waterfront property in really hard times holds its own. You can't make any more property, and there's always someone out there that's going to want that. So if you understand what you're purchasing it from the right person, I think you're going to be okay. I do.
A growing story, greater desirability, a finite supply, and
More demand.
More demand. Okay, as couples begin to become more and more involved, and you're starting to see more ladies involved in the story. How do you think that happened? You think it happened because? How do you think it happened? I saw it happen. It was an anomaly to me. If you asked me 10 years ago, and people have, what do I think about the market? I went, what I see is old people selling art to old people. And then all of a sudden we had, post-COVID, I think, may have had something to do with it, where couples spent more time together. And post-COVID, we began to see young people showing up into the marketplace, couples showing up. How do you think all that happened, Ken?
I think ultimately time will allow that to happen, right? I mean, we have this and we talk to these friends of ours, and then these talk to these people, and I think a lot of people just started getting excited about it. There's a history to it that a lot of other art doesn't have. You know, sometimes people paint and they just paint to paint and it's beautiful and that's great, but there's a story here. And I think the story to the Highwaymen has a very deep value to a lot of us that have been like raised in this area, people that are born here and they feel a connection. And I think the more connection that is exposed, the more people find that that's desirable for them. That story really means a lot, I think.
Right, and you know, there's a greater, you know, I want to say, you know, the Gen Z or millennial generation, I would say the millennial generation, and then maybe Gen Z, really brought the social aspect to the forefront. Social media really changed the world for how we all communicate and how we convey our thoughts to one another. And now all of these generations are very socially aware of all of the aspects of you know, value. The value systems are blending more. Okay, this story is really, really rich in its story, and it carries forward into the on a national level the level of overcoming adversity, and the artistic movement of the Highwaymen is just one that extends far beyond the borders of Florida, although right now, for the most part, it is Florida. You know, we do ship overseas. We're seeing major players in London step in. We're seeing people, you know, west of the Mississippi in quantity.
And as the movie is going to
the movie's going to take that to a national level.
That's going to be another national exposure.
And then the docuseries, which is not far behind that, we hope.
Absolutely.
And that's an exciting thing. Yeah. We're looking forward to that.
And it's not only the history. To me too, it's the quality of the art. I started off, I was collecting art many years before it was Highwaymen art. I collected what people called the masters, Moreau, Picasso, Dali, and then I got into modern art, Paul, Warhol and Basquiat and pop art.
Right.
And a lot of that art's on paper, and there's something to be said for that. But these are original oil paintings. Oil paintings, original. They're not mass-produced. They're not serigraphs. They're not lithographs.
Right.
And so the story and the history is unbelievable. But the quality of the art for some of these artists
are there. Right. When you look at Miro, you know, you've got seven lines in 4 different colors with a dot. You know, is that a Martian or is that a person? Not really sure. You know, and then when you go to Warhol, and these are world-renowned artists. Correct. You go to Warhol and you go, that's a really great can of Campbell's soup.
That's correct.
You know what I mean? And then you look at this and you go, wow.
Wow. Right. And it evokes memories. Like Candy said, there will be times I'll see a new painting, something that maybe I haven't seen before, and I'll look at it and, wow, that looks like where I fished with my dad. Right. Yeah. Or that looks like where I fished in the backwater with my kids. And it just evokes memories, and I think that's also an attraction.
Or I've been there to that actual real bar. I've sat in that beach. Yeah. So you do, you have a lot of that memory that goes with these kinds of paintings.
Yeah, yeah, that is truly amazing. Yeah, thank you both for joining. I really appreciate your perspective and your time. And I hope we get an opportunity to do this again and see you at the auction. Thank you all for joining us on another episode of Highwaymen Social. Look forward to seeing you all next week.